everyone, and welcome to Collider Supergirl Recap Show. We are back, and we're talking episode 11, Strange Visitor from Another Planet. I am Kaori Takee, and I've got some wonderful ladies with me right on my right.
Hello, everyone. How are you? And this is my camera. I found it. I'm Clarke Wolfe. It's nice to see you.
I'm glad you found your camera.
Thank you. It took me a lot of practice.
I'm sure all the viewers want to see your lovely face. And then to my left.
Hey everyone, I'm Carli. It's great to be back with all the girls. So happy.
And on Carli's left.
I'm Britta Garsow, and also really happy that we're all back here. 2016.
I know, it feels like it's been a while since we've all been together.
Has been a while.
Happy New Year before February hits, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of stuff to talk about. What we're going to do is we're going to talk, I was looking at the wrong camera. We're going to talk about our positives, and then we're going to talk about our negatives on this show. And also later on, we're going to be taking your Twitter questions. All you got to do to send those questions over is hashtag Collider Supergirl to get those questions, because we will answer a few of them on the show. All right, guys, so before we get to some of our positives, what are your overall thoughts of this episode?
Should we talk about Childish Things?
Sure. Let's talk. Let's talk about cumulatively what went down.
Well, because we haven't been here in a couple of episodes,
Yes.
and last week with
Winn,
we got a lot of his backstory, and I actually just wanted to mention that I loved the Toyman. I thought he was a great villain.
So good. He's so good.
I loved all of his gadgets, and I thought like he was super evil and crazy.
The yo-yo?
Yeah.
That was, right after that, it was like, oh, wow. It was a very great introduction scene, I felt like, for him. Like, we saw how powerful he was immediately. Usually it builds up a little bit on the show, I feel like, with all the villains that they've had to kind of fight. But I just loved his introduction, and he's slowly but surely one of my favorite villains.
And it also added a lot of dimension to Winn as well as a character, and now you're formally more invested in him rather than just this guy that has a crush on Kara. So
Yeah.
I mean, it was a very Winn-centric episode.
It was a good breakout episode for him because he's, like you were saying, he's been kind of here, like the sidekick and the lovelorn, guy who pines after Kara. But yeah, I loved getting to see like him grapple with, trying to figure out like, am I gonna be like my dad? And that was something I felt like we saw coming from early, like in the season.
Yeah.
And granted, he hasn't crossed over yet, but like I wonder if he's actually.
And I also felt like that whole scene where he had that fear of being like his dad was also very relatable, because I mean, even if it's something silly, you know how people are always, when they get older, they're like, oh, I'm just like my mom. Oh, what's happening? So I felt like it was very relatable, because you do think about those things.
You do.
So I really liked that whole scene, and I was just so proud of him for finally kissing Kara. I didn't see it coming.
So proud.
And he just stood up for himself, and I think he really needed to do that.
It's funny because I cringed.
I said, whoa, out loud. Yeah. He kissed her. I went, whoa.
I was just like no one has taken him seriously up until this point, because he's been like the sidekick best friend, and I felt like at least he did something. Yeah. So I didn't cringe, but her reaction was really sad. It was really disheartening. It was very real.
Yeah.
It was like a real situation. Yeah. It was actually timed really well too. Like, I'm not an actress, but I feel like that would be very hard to time. Like, he went in and she pulled away at the perfect time.
They really did. They handled that really well. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. The timing worked really well. I was shocked.
Yeah, I know.
And
But
now,
I'm so proud.
and now their dynamics is completely different, and you see
It's
that.
completely
in
not
the
even
season.
there.
even in it.
Yeah, that's true. He got sidelined pretty hard.
Yeah.
Well, also Lucy and James are like kind of on the rocks a little too because of
about
her
time.
jab.
Yeah,
episode too long.
That made me so mad. It made me
was
feel
so
awkward about the fact that she got this great job. Like, didn't you think your boyfriend should be supportive? And he didn't seem happy at all.
You would expect more from James, right?
From him.
Because he seems very open-minded and very cool about wanting his girlfriend to succeed, especially since they were having that conversation. And he's always felt belittled by her dad, so it's kind of hypocritical.
I agree. But I also saw where he was coming from. I think having them work together and then they're together in their personal lives, it is so much at once
Yes.
that I think he was just kind of nervous about it and just didn't know how to talk about it with her. But I did see his point. And it was also, she just all of a sudden wanted to change careers out of nowhere. So he was probably worried for her sake. Well, I mean, she was working with her dad.
For the military.
For the military.
but
So
still-
it was pretty different.
Yeah, she gets a lot of different job opportunities.
Yeah.
This Lucy Lane over here.
Oh, but we also found out that she and her sister Lois do not get along.
Oh, yeah, that's
apparently.
true. Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, we know that Kat isn't a big Lois Lane fan.
Yeah.
Which is
And
funny.
I hope one day they introduce Lois on this show. I would
too.
love to see them cast an actress to play,
I
even if it
agree.
was just for like one episode.
Yeah.
because we know that Kat got her start in an internship at the Daily Planet, and I guess their ages aren't really the same, Lois and Kat, but still, they must have run into each other at some place because she doesn't like her.
Yeah, exactly. I would like that too.
I'm still waiting for the episode where I start feeling invested or start really liking Lucy Lane because I'm not feeling her right
I
now.
agree.
I
know?
agree too, and I
Yeah.
really like Jenna Dewan, but
Me too.
I
Yeah.
don't like Lucy for
Yeah.
some
She's
reason.
very one-dimensional. Like she's just there.
I'm
And
hoping
if she
that
was
now-
gone, you like this episode, we barely noticed, right?
Yeah, like
yeah.
this episode, I'm thinking, okay, she talked back to her briefly and then she stepped down. That was it. That was it.
Yeah, I'm hoping though that she has like an actual role in the company. Maybe we'll see more dimension. I'm
Yeah.
hoping because I do like her as like a person and as like I really want to like Lucy. So
So do I. So do I.
Hopefully.
All right, guys. So you guys ready to talk about this episode because it's fresh in our minds. I'm sure we got lots to talk about. So let's talk about overall thoughts before we got to break it down.
So many emotions.
Yeah,
I really liked it, but I liked the last episode better than this one.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but this one was good.
It was good.
I thought this one was the most different episode we've seen so far because there were so many emotions involved and focused so heavily on Kat's personal life, and which is something we've seen her kind of break her shell a little bit, break out of her shell, but not so much as to where we saw her crying a little bit. So this episode for me, I really enjoyed just because of the whole Kat aspect.
I thought it was really smart that they always do this where they have a title, but the title applies to two different story arcs,
That's
right?
true.
Strange visitor from another planet. We've got Adam walking into Kat's life, and then we have White Martian walking into Hank's life. And I thought it just tied everything in together, the parallels. I really personally enjoyed this episode. I liked it better than last week's episode myself.
Yeah, there's just so much at stake in different ways between like last week and this week. You know, I really liked in this week, I love the Martian Manhunter stories. And, you know, they had been sort of teasing that we would get to see some of the genocide and see some of the war. And that was I thought it was beautifully done. I mean, again, like I feel like they're really doing right by the Martian Manhunter character in terms of like the CG and the visual effects, because we've talked about that on this show before, that sometimes the effects don't always look great, but when it comes to Jean, I feel like they always look good. And I feel like that sequence was jarring and scary and devastating, and so they really did a great job with that.
And you can definitely feel the emotion, at least me watching the backstory. I wrote in my notes, this is how backstory should be, Arrow. Because it just has so much heart and understanding and reasoning, and it makes sense into why he is who he is.
Yeah, it
you
doesn't
know?
leave you confused,
Yeah,
which is
and
key. I noted that, like, we saw this the whole season, but they did such a good job, particularly in this episode, of balancing, like, the emotional relationships of people and then, like, fighting and aliens and in that whole universe. Like,
Right.
it was the perfect combination of both in
They
this
do that
episode.
really well.
Yeah.
I agree. I really like how we see. I feel like this whole season, I've kind of thought of Hank as, he's been Hank for so long. We don't really think of him as John anymore. And
Yeah,
or
what
we
should
do.
what
We
should
do
we
refer to him as.
I think either one
Okay.
works.
Yeah,
I mean, he is both.
yeah,
right?
I mean,
he's both.
even Alex sometimes calls him Hank when she
Yeah.
has to professionally. So
Yeah.
I think, you know.
So we're kind of learning more about him. But then this episode, I felt like I really understood his struggle, because we don't even think of him as being the last one and the pressure that holds until Kara brought it up to him. And so that was really interesting to me, how he's been feeling this whole entire time he's been Hank, that I didn't ever think about before.
But also, I love that part, and I guess we're all talking positives because there's so many.
Yeah.
The part where Alex tells him there is no shame in surviving.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, man, this episode is filled with good.
Alex was a good voice of reason this whole episode.
Yeah, I've liked the development of Alex and John together, and how much they're almost like sometimes father daughter, sometimes brother sister. They're a really good team.
They are.
And I think he's a good resource for Alex because, I feel like, when it comes to Alex and Kara, is often going to Alex for advice. And I think Alex has to be the strong one. And I think I love the dynamic between Hank and Alex together because, Alex can show emotion towards him and she can show compassion for him. And, I think that it's a good trade-off. Kyler Lee, who plays Alex, she's kind of the subtle unsung hero of this whole show.
Every episode, I love her more.
I know.
More.
Yes. And between last week's episode where she had to, by the way, she looked smoking when she went on her date
I know, she
with
did.
Maxwell Lord. But I was so mad because I was like, girl, put that dress away and get it out for somebody who deserves it. You know how I feel about Maxwell Lord. But with that being said, Kyler Lee just plays every single level, and she's this really, even when she has one line in a scene, she's doing so much. She's so involved. I just think, she's so subtle, but she's incredible. It's just these performances are so good.
I agree. I was going to say, sorry, but the one when you said even if she has one line in the scene, even the last final fight scene with Jean and Supergirl and Alex, she wasn't saying anything, and I felt like her presence was so important there. And that to me is when a character is so vital for the whole show. And because it's she didn't really need to say anything because they were handling it, but I just, even her being there and supporting both of them, I just really enjoyed that whole scene.
What's so great about her is that she's so strong and she knows two very obviously superhuman characters who technically are stronger than her, but she has no fear, fear of protecting them or defending them or being there for them. And her character is just so immense, and my love for that character grows every episode. I really like her.
Yeah. I just really thought Melissa's acting shined in this episode. For me, she's always been a really great actress, but then this episode, I was so taken aback. I felt like she did so well. I don't know what it was about this episode, but the emotions and just how she was as Supergirl and as Kara, I just felt like it was perfect. She did such a good job.
There was a lot of really strong performances in this episode. And I'm not being funny, I really think David Harewood, who plays Jean/Hank, he could be a contender for some awards. Granted, I feel like the Emmys are really tough anyway for anyone to get recognition. But in this episode, I thought the caliber of performance that he brought forward was something that we haven't seen on these kinds of shows. Not to say ever, but he really brought something different. And I think this character is so lauded by comic book fans everywhere, and clearly by David, who's spoken about his admiration for Jean, that I think he's taking it very seriously, and I think it upped the ante for everyone.
That's funny. True. That was actually in one of my notes, that his acting, especially this last one where he's getting emotional, talking about his life on Mars and the genocide and all that stuff, it rivals the Flash's Iris West's dad. I forgot his name, but
yeah,
I thought
Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
I know this.
But yes, I completely agree with you. His acting is on another level, and you really feel it. I really thought, this guy's an alien, man, in real life too. He
has that look. He has a very unique look, even
very
as
unique.
A person.
Oh, down to the ears.
His ears. That's what they always say. That's what all the creator, Andrew Kreisberg says that all the time. They were looking at him during the pilot, and they look at his ears, and they were like, he looks like an alien in a way, in the best way possible.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't be saying this.
No,
I don't want to
think
offend him.
Takes that as a compliment.
He probably loves being
a
so
really
unique looking.
badass alien.
Some others of my positives. One of the fight scene, the chase with the white Martian.
Oh man, it was so good.
Yeah.
Yes.
They did really well with the special effects.
The actress
in this
that played
episode.
Miranda, I felt, did a really good job. Really good job.
Yeah. The special effects in general in this entire episode, really well done.
Amazing.
When her face went half the white Martian and half still her, it was incredible.
It was really scary. I loved the creature design of the white Martian in this episode.
Very intimidating. It was terrifying, so it got the job done. That's for sure.
And I noticed too during that scene where she was breaking out as the white Martian for the first time through the DE DEO. I always think of Hank in Breaking Bad and DEA, and I'm confused. And they're very different shows, but obviously. But when the White Martian was kind of taking off, I noticed actually one of the first times I noticed the directing in this show. I mean, I think that they like the different camera angles, the way it was shot together, the way they went close and then they went wide, and I mean, it was a really like I have in my notes. Overall, I feel like this episode is very cool. There's cool music. There's
the
great
music, really well.
Great acting. There's great visuals. There's great special effects. Like this was a really great, complicated episode.
And any other positives?
I'm just glad that Adam
I wrote
is
that too.
in the mix now.
Are you?
For so many reasons.
Well, I just love Blake and Melissa. I think they're so cute.
But Glee reunion.
But one of my negatives was that like, wow, another guy, you know. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I mainly like that he came back to get to know Kat because I do think that's important. She shouldn't be wasting any more time not being in his life, and I'm really glad they could put the past behind them.
and they're acting as well.
So good.
So good. And I
good.
really like that he didn't let her in so easily. She was being very selfish, I felt like, and not giving any of herself to the conversation. So I'm really glad that played out well and realistic.
To be fair, it's really hard to, if there's silence, you're not going to have someone talk about themselves. You know what I mean? It's hard.
That was one of my dislikes,
Yeah,
actually,
me
was
too.
that scene between the two of the first one
I wrote that
at
too.
dinner. I thought that Adam was being a little hard on Kat.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, I was kind of I was like,
I think it's because we love her so much.
maybe, but also I think this is. I don't know. Granted, you're right. We have an affection for Kat, but I was thinking about that position, like being in that position and how you would relate to somebody, and
It's hard.
It is hard, and I'm sure for Kat, like she's been in this authority position her whole life, and now she's speaking to her son, who I guess she has some sort of authority over, but still, I don't know. I just thought he was a little harsh with her.
I think so too, because for us as viewers watching down below, you see that she's will do anything to mend this with him, and dinner meant a lot. She was like, I'll move my plans, I'll do anything to spend time with you, and he was just, you're done talking about yourself? Okay, wouldn't he be interested in getting to know about her too?
But
She was
if it
bragging.
came all that way, I would think that he would be willing to just kind of put that aside, and even if he talked about shallow things, like
he could have tried
kind
to
of
open himself
matched
up,
her. Yeah,
So.
I guess we don't really know because we've never had a mom
Yes.
give us up for adoption. So I felt like, well, I knew it would be resolved in the end, so I didn't think he was too harsh in that scene because I knew there would be a second chance.
And it's funny because that was in my negatives, the whole scene, but then Supergirl saved it, literally, because the next scene, when she's in the middle trying to have them just be honest, very important is to be honest, and then she talks about how she never got to hang his first picture in the fridge.
It was so
When
all
she
that
said,
stuff.
I'm your
Oh,
biggest
crap.
fan, the tears started flowing.
Yes.
I liked when she said, "I never got to teach you how not to be afraid of the world."
Yeah.
It was just so touching.
And that scene was really good. That scene and the Martian Manhunter's backstory were my two favorite scenes of this episode.
I agree.
Yeah. So what are some of your negatives, other negatives?
Okay, one thing I didn't like was that Maxwell, we found out so much about him in the last episode and his whole plan and whatnot, and he wasn't in this episode at all. And I just don't like when shows do that because I feel like it's important to have some sort of continuation. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that they kind of dropped the bomb that, Hank broke in there last episode, and then all of a sudden nothing. We don't know
he
anything.
kind of appeared at the end.
The very end, yeah. Because I wrote that down too, and then there was the whole thing at the end. But I do think it's an underlying storyline that they should continue, since it's like an underlying and it's going to be
Yeah.
a big. I mean, he's obviously going to be their enemy for probably the rest of the season. So I just didn't really like how there was no mention of him at all.
Yeah, and where's Astra?
Yeah, that's true
Yes.
too.
Like,
See?
I mean,
Yes.
to be fair, there's a lot to cover, granted, and we have Villains of the Week, and we have Maxwell Lord, who's still kind of like, why are they trying to convince us that maybe he's okay?
I know.
Like,
That's another thing. They go so back and forth with him.
They really do. And last week especially, like, he's the worst. So I don't know. But we've got Maxwell, and we've got our monster of the week, and we've got which was the White Martian this week, and we've got Astra and Non still out there. So it's I feel like they've sort of kind of put those aside for a minute, and we need them around.
Yeah, but to be fair, like, Astro did always kind of literally drop in. Like, it was never, like, a continuous thing, where I feel like the Maxwell thing is literally developing at, like, every episode. So it's kind of important that that storyline be there, so we kind of know, like, what's happening.
I just think the only problem is it just might get too cluttered with different storylines, and a lot of times it looks sloppier when they do that a lot of in different TV shows. So I think I was okay with one episode having Lord take a break.
Totally. I do think it's kind of funny though how Astra's mission is, I guess, is to take over the world, and we haven't heard from her in a couple of episodes. I know. So I guess she's taking a break, maybe
planning her next move.
Yeah, I guess so. But I mean, I didn't really have too many negatives about this episode.
That was really my only one.
I mean, my big one, and this is continuous, is why does she keep calling her Kira?
Oh yeah, I did write that down because it bothers me too. But the joke was pretty funny.
Yeah,
like, so is your name Kira or Cara? It's pretty good.
Yeah. All right, well, let's move on to some Twitter questions. My girl right here, Clarke. I was going to call you Clarke.
I'll be Supergirl any day. That's totally fine. Okay, so our first question is from John at JT_Shadow35. And he said, do you think we will see more White Martians in the rest of the season?
Definitely.
Yes. Yeah?
They totally alluded to it when they asked. She said, there's hundreds more of me. They'll be coming for me. Thousands. Yeah. I don't think that they would mention that if it wasn't going to happen.
And they're intimidating, too, which I really like about it, because just one was a freak show.
What does a whole mass look like?
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I definitely hope so too, and especially how they're going to shapeshift into who.
Yeah,
that's
a
going to
good
be
point.
Interesting, right?
Absolutely. I love that they're playing with the shapeshifting, by the way, like with the tease for Bizarro next week, and but it just keeps you guessing.
It does,
and it's cool how they're using it in fun ways, like when Jean was Supergirl to trick Kat, and then last week when Jean was Maxwell Lord. By the way, I did want to mention that when he was Maxwell Lord, I thought Peter Facinelli did a great job. Like, he was funny and goofy, and he was just like a little stiff. Like, you know what I mean?
Like just the right amount.
Exactly. Like, his body language changed just enough to where you're like, that's not Maxwell Lord.
Yeah.
But that all kind of goes to, like, that credit goes to Peter Facinelli because he's playing both characters. I thought that was great.
All right. Another question.
Yes. I'm sorry. I lost our hashtag.
It's okay.
Pause, please. Collider Supergirl. Okay, our next question is from Lemon Grab Ren, which is at Hank of Lemon Grab. Do you think, speaking of Bizarro, do you think we will get a good arc with Bizarro, or do you think she will be one and done?
It's a hard question.
Yeah.
I don't know. She's kind of been building up in a quote unquote laboratory, right? So, I mean, it would be a shame if all that work just for one episode.
But we don't know her
Good
fate.
point.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Clearly, they fight next week. So we don't know what happens.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
And now that Maxwell knows that Kara is Supergirl, and he knows that Alex, or I guess, yeah, he does. I mean, he knows that Kara is Supergirl. He knows that Alex is her sister. So, I mean, it would behoove him if he wanted to take out Supergirl to have something that looks just like Supergirl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope they do. I think that would be cool. I mean, look, I think that I would love for them to commit to Maxwell Lord being the villain for the next couple of episodes.
Me too. He's a good villain.
He's a good villain, and you know, he's exciting, and you know, they've teased us enough. But I feel like maybe if they introduce Bizarro next week, that will mean Maxwell's here to stay for a while.
Yeah, I mean, having to fight against yourself is pretty scary. But then you would want her to defeat herself.
I know.
So then where would that go after?
And Maxwell, obviously, this was his plan for so long. So if she did die, what would happen next?
You know?
I mean, the show's very unpredictable. Like, I really did not think that they were going to add Adam as a love interest. And that just surprised me. So you really never know what they have in the works.
And there is a photo on IMDb on what's his name? Jenner's real name.
Blake Jenner.
Blake Jenner's IMDb page. There is a photo of him and Kara, not his wife Melissa, Kara kissing. So
New boyfriend alert?
I mean, I guess so. Who knows?
Oh, leading Winn to his evil.
I know. Well, so that's a great segue because that's our next question. But wait, where is it? Can I find it? Okay, here it is. Marcus G, who is at Paradox Kid, said, "Hi, do you think Toyman may escape again?" Oh, shoot, that's the wrong question. That's a good question, though.
It is.
Do you think Toyman might escape again and possibly align himself with Maxwell Lord?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think he'll escape again.
I
I don't think
he's
he's a
like a
pretty smart man, but I don't think he would align with anyone except for Winn.
Look at that sneak attack question.
I know, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that, but I read my notes wrong. But by the way, on that note, I did not like how in last week's episode, we just see Kara being like, you know, he's in the basement and we see Kara like fly in there and she's like, ha, and then end of
he's
story.
back in jail.
Yeah, and she's like, your dad's back in jail. And I was like, really? We didn't see like any cool toys like
There was no fight, which you know he wouldn't let
Supergirl
happen.
can't be perfect.
I feel like
okay?
that was cut for time.
Yeah.
If I had to
cut for
guess.
time.
Yes.
And
By the way, can I mention one more thing? I have one more thing that I didn't like about this
course.
episode. And that is, I'm really done with Kara trying to talk to every villain and be like,
Talk them down.
listen, crazy white Martian, or listen, evil whatever. Like, just, you know what? Be nice, be cool.
Yeah.
And no, sometimes I feel like you need to murder a white Martian.
I think that I think Toyman was the exception though because it's his
Well,
it's
yeah,
Winn's father.
yeah,
Yeah.
I get that.
But I think she's just still struggling separating Kara from Supergirl. That's probably it. But I agree, she needs to separate them.
Like, I felt like, I don't know, I vengeance is not cool, obviously, and that's not the message of the show, but I did feel like that white Martian was really dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about, I mean, this is a whole different, going to a whole different topic, but I just feel that a lot of heroes are always about life and saving their lives.
And they
it's
just
like,
lock
come
them
on,
up.
kill them
Yeah.
sometimes, you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, like, I just, don't you think that if it's the worst villain, like a really bad villain, like maybe it's okay for Jean to murder the white Martian and
Yeah.
also to maybe
Spare
get a
some
little,
lives.
and get a little bit of a catharsis considering that they murdered his entire race of people.
That's what I'm saying.
And I think it was almost a little bit offensive that she said, if you murder him, you're going to change completely. Because she doesn't really know that. And if that were to happen, then you deal with it then. Like, just let him do what he wants and then deal
Just
with
deal
it.
with the consequences. You'll be
Yeah.
there for him.
Well, clearly
Anyway.
we are. Clearly, you can see what side.
We'll have another after show on
We're
villains
dangerous,
versus
exactly.
heroes.
Okay, so the question I was looking for, which I just found, was Sensei #Team Batman at Batboy 1989. Do you see Winn becoming a bad guy? If so, will that happen this season already? In your opinion?
I think if he becomes bitter about just how Carl reacted to his affections and he doesn't know how to deal with it, then yes, I could see him
I
being
can
a
see
bad
it.
guy.
I
But
truly don't think he'll be a villain.
I
I,
don't
can
think-
see it. I can see how he would, but I'm not sure.
I don't see him like necessarily staying bad. I see him being the type of person that kind of is tormented by that. You know
Like
what
a
I mean?
Maxwell Lord-ish?
Kind of, except maybe more like I could see Winn sort of crossing over, or being under the influence of
Yeah.
something,
Under the influence, yes.
but still going with that inclination. However, I don't think we'll see that happen until next season, if
I
there
agree.
is a
There's
season
so much
2.
going on already this
Way too
season.
much.
But they've been really planting those
In a good way.
seeds of Winn being, you know, potentially not dangerous, but like I've been saying it since the beginning. He's getting rejected, and like, where does he fit in? And now his father comes and does all this horrible stuff. And by the way, the fact that Winn almost shot somebody and like the police were like, whatevs, like,
Yeah.
I know. I actually was, when they were at his desk, I thought it was like a week later or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, she's like, tie ordered.
yeah, I
No
thought
big deal.
for sure that we were gonna see him in jail or like apprehended or questioned or something, considering
Yeah.
he brought a weapon into a convention and almost shot someone in the face. I'm just saying.
Plot
agree.
hole. Like,
I think
like
he's
you
very-
mentioned James taking pictures when we didn't see him taking.
Oh, that was hilarious.
I know that's
I liked an episode without James focus.
I did
though.
too,
I'm
I
gonna
did
be
too.
honest. I don't need him to be the focus of every episode.
Especially since he's dating Lucy right now.
Yeah. And he's not good at it. So.
What's gonna happen when he sees Adam and Kara together? They're all
Maybe
gonna be
he'll
in the
start to be
office
honest with
together.
himself.
Oh my gosh, they are.
Two really complicated couples who probably should not be dating each other.
Yeah,
Plus
And then
Winn
Oh, and
in the
Winn.
corner.
Poor Winn.
Crying.
I actually
kidding,
think
you
I
won't
actually
cry.
feel like they'll end up together. I don't know. I have
I'm
this
yeah,
weird
exactly.
feeling.
Major
Who?
prediction in a future seasons later. I feel like Winn might win. this
Yeah,
round.
I
I think
think
so. I
so.
hope he does.
Really? You
Yeah.
think he and Kara might end up together?
I do.
think
Maybe
so.
not last, but you know,
Maybe
like,
we're watching too much Arrow and
Wow.
Flash.
I know. That's what
I
I'm
don't
thinking.
really
I'm
know
like,
because they all have dated like
fan
everyone.
favorite. Okay, let's do this. You know.
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I'd like them
me
together.
either.
Me too.
Yeah, I thought
loves
Jeremy
her.
was great. The actor who plays Winn, I thought he was great last week. They gave him something to do, and he did really well with
Yeah,
it.
He
yeah.
reminds me of like a bootleg Mr. Robot.
He's
a very good
twin.
way.
The guy that plays
Really?
Mr. Robot. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, Sammy and Rami. All right, guys. Well, that completes our after show for this week. Come back next week for another Collider Supergirl recap after show. I am Kaori Takee, and don't forget that you can send over those questions at hashtag Collider Supergirl all week long. Not even just questions, comments. Keep the conversation going. And in the meantime, you can follow all of us. We're at Clarke. Where can people follow you?
You guys can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Periscope at Clarke Wolfe. Clarke with an E, Wolf with an E, and on YouTube, youtube.com/official Clarke Wolfe.
And the twins over there.
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carli_Garsow.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Britta_Garsow.
And they also have a really cute beauty blog.
Twinspiration.co.
That's right.
For all of our Supergirl audience.
All the Supergirl audience. And you can follow me right down there at Supergirl. No, you can follow me right down there at Kaorius, Kaorious. Everywhere, anywhere, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that good stuff. And we'll catch you next week for some more Supergirl talk.